What's going on, guys? I'm the severed head of Drawing Chaos here with another Satisfactory video. Hooray! Welcome to Fix It. I'm Bob, and today I'll be your... Get on with it! I'm screwed. And in today's video, we're going over beginner tips for playing Satisfactory. Yes, I know this video is not going to get a lot of views on account it's for beginners, people who are new to the game, just started playing, maybe under even that 10-hour mark. I mean, what? New players? That's crazy. So anyway, we're going to start from the beginning, and we might as well start with this nice little opening screen. Where, if we start a new game, you can actually see that you have a bunch of different options here. Now, tip number one is that all these different options here, none of them matter, because they're all on the same map. Though, the grassy fields and this rocky desert are pretty easy and wide open to use, whereas the Northern Forest is a little more compact, but has better nodes. And the Dune Desert has some decent nodes and everything else, but, you know, you gotta get used to the game before you want to just jump into this. Although it has plenty of space to work in, so that's always good. Also, if you're very new to the game, there's an option of skipping the intro. Don't do that. That's no bueno. You want to learn the game and learn it right. So here we are in a nice little game, and then we will get to tip number two. So tip number two is you're going to want to basically plow through all these different tiers and knock out as much stuff as possible. Don't worry about letting your base become nice and neat and organized. You kind of just want to put things down and just grab them as they need them. So here you can see that I've been building this nice little thing just making concrete, and I just have one of them making concrete. Now I could use a splitter and make a second one and have them go in the same thing, but as you can see, it just keeps building on the concrete. And over time, this will build up the things that I need. So in the early game, before I'm going to destroy everything and rebuild it to the sky, I basically just make these nice little small things right here, so I have all the items that I need. And as you can see over here, I did the same thing with this one. I got this one over here making iron rods, and this one over here making iron plates. Nothing too special. And as you can see, with just those nice little setups, I was able to get through tiers 1 and tiers 2 and all the nice little things that you need. And it doesn't really take up that much. It also doesn't take up a lot of power too. Speaking of power, so tip number 3 is if you look at these biomass burners that you get for free, these only make 20 megawatts of power. And they still take the same amount of fuel as everything else that's over here, which produces... Oh, no, not this one, because there's no product in it. But as you can see, this one produces 30 megawatts of power. And the reason for that is these are better. Screw the one on the hub. So once you're able to build biomass burners, what you want to do is you want to build a whole bunch of them around and basically just have them set up. Because these will make you much more power and use stuff more efficiently than the ones over there. Also, tip number 4 is actually building biomass little power plant. Now, this may seem like a lot, you know, but it isn't. But as you can see here, I'm making 490 megawatts of power, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on one side, 6 on the other. So I just got 12 in this nice little 5x5 section. And if you can see, we're going to go down here. All I have is 4 machines turning all of this into solid biofuel. Which brings me on to tip number 6. What you want to do over here is you want to turn all your biomass into solid biofuel. And the reason for that is if you watched my previous video on power, you'll realize how much more powerful solid biofuel is than regular biofuel. You can take regular biomass and extend your powers for solid biofuel so much more further to be able to get everything that you need in the early game. Tip number 6, all right? So getting to actually building stuff that needs to be combined together, such as over here we can see this lovely thing making reinforced iron plates. And as you can see, it's building up the iron plates just as intended. So when dealing with this stuff, what you want to do is you want to make setups that are just for one specific item. So over there, you saw that I was make iron plates and iron rods. Now, granted, I could take the iron rods, turn those into screws, combine those screws with the plates, and make some reinforced iron plates. But when I go and need those plates and need those screws for other stuff that's not going to be made here, I'm not going to have them. By leaving those alone and actually making one little setup over here by itself, this really expands the amount of stuff that I'm able to produce, and it saves me from getting screwed over later in my playthrough. So, tip number 7 is going to be, when you're looking at stuff like this, reinforced iron plates, and you want to make something for that, you're going to work your way backwards. So, if you want to do 5 parts per minute, you're going to need 30 iron plates and 60 screws. So if you go into one of these buildings and see how much it's going to make, it only makes 40. So you're going to need at least 1.5 of those. The same thing with the iron plates that are over here. If I can jump. Haha. So this is only going to make me 20 and I need 30. So basically that's 1.5. Now granted, if I put 2 of them, like I did over here, then I know it's going to be 3 and 3. And then of course, I just need to figure out, well, what makes this? And you can see what makes my screws. Well, that's going to be iron rods. So 2 of these at 15 parts per minute, 30. 10 on each of those, bam, math works out perfectly. Then I just need to figure out how many smelters to make the iron ingots for that, and then I'm pretty much set. And the way this works is basically I'm working for what I want at the end and working my way towards the beginning instead of vice versa. So like tip number 8 over here is if I started taking this and I took my 60 line and I just started making like iron ingots and then I'm like, oh, I'm going to make plates, I'm going to make screws, I'm going to get confused, the numbers are not going to match and nothing's going to work right. And that's why I build backwards. But there are also other things that you can do as well. You can actually take these lines and just make one solid item. So this is making a smelter of iron ingots. Okay, so let's say I took all 3 of those and I just made iron ingots. Then I take all those ingots and then I make stuff like, you know, iron rods, and I make some screws, and I make some iron plates. That is another way that you can actually do it. And it tends to help as well if you do it that way, instead of just making different, you know, sections like we've done over here. There are multiple different ways to make the same objective, but it's up to you to figure out which one works better for you. As you can see over here, I have copper just being made into wire, and the wire is basically just being put into a bin. Now, the nice thing about this is, if I need cable, I can just take this copper wire and basically turn it into cable over the workbench. But if I want to, I can also put another machine. Or I can split the line off in the beginning, then I can make another wonderful constructor over here and a constructor in front of it, and that'll make my cable, and then I can have the cable separate but still next to it. It's up to you on what you want to do, but just remember that making stuff simple like this, where it's one item being made even though you can make it into a different item later, always tends to help. But I always like to make sure that at least one item is being made and shoved in a bin. And that gets us to tip number 9. But unfortunately, this tip is not going to be on this map. So let's load a different map real quick. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're on to the new map. This is my 5x5 build, which is usually meant for people who like a challenge, who's already gotten 1,000 hours into the game. But the way that this is constructed is actually going to give us a lot of insight on the beginning build. Now, take a look at this right here. So what we got going on is I got a splitter coming over here, and it's basically just splitting these up. Now, even though this is a 60 line, this is a 370 or something, whatever. Even though it doesn't matter about the math, it just goes in here. When this gets basically filled up, when that bin gets filled up, it holds onto a lot of product. And once that starts running, everything else will start feeding back into these, which, by the way, are already full at 100. So this is going to last for a long while before it starts, you know, going down and starting to need, you know, a specific amount of product. Now, if that sounds confusing, it's because it kind of is. See, the idea behind this is if you make excess machines for one item and have them all merge into, like, say, one bin, once all that, kind of gets together, then you'll basically have all these machines on idle. So this machine now has 100 extra concrete in it, while 100 limestone ready to go to be made into concrete. And basically this gives me an upset. So then when I go into here, and let's say I want to grab a whole bunch of concrete, now every one of these machines start to empty out into the center, and now each one of them kick on. So even though I'm not going to have enough pieces coming in to withstand all this, what's going to happen is all these are going to kick on and fill this bin up as fast as it possibly can. Or at least as fast as the belt you got going on is going to fill it. So tip number 10 is to make yourself a bin of an item on every single item you can. Even if you think you're not going to use it, like iron plates or iron rods, and you think you're going to go, oh, I just need reinforced iron plates now. I don't care about them iron rods or iron plates or blah, 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 blah. Trust me, eventually you might need it. Even if it's something as simple as iron ingots. Iron ingots can only be made into specific things, but having them on standby in a bin is going to make it easier to make other items further on. And as you can see, when we go up this one, I have a bin set up for each and every item. So here's some Caterium and whatnot. So even if I have to handcraft something to get things to go, it's still ready to go. And this tends to help a lot in the early game. Especially if you don't know what you're going to be building or how much you're going to need of anything, you at least know and have everything ready to go. It's amazing and wonderful. Hey, here's a good empty room that we can go over another tip. Tip number, what are we up to? Like 11 or something like that? Yeah, tip number 11. Build yourself small little rooms for the beginning part and build items in these rooms. What I mean by that is, like, take a look at all this inventory that's coming in here. It literally is 1 or 2 lines of every single item. So I'm not, like, killing off the planet. But at the same time, you can see I'm just getting things basically all stacked up and ready to go. With a special bin all the way in the back ready to go for that. So if I need anything, it's right here. And each room is overproducing when it needs to, and then stops when it doesn't. Easy peasy. And if you get used to building these nice little rooms, let's say you move over to a new area, like say all that big area over there, building one of these small rooms is going to be really easy when you have tons of room to work out later. And then try things out. See how you can actually make things a little bit condensed, and working together. Now, granted, this gets a little bit more difficult when you start doing stuff like, building assemblers and foundries that take multiple different inputs. Let me see if I can get to the other side. But if you use a little creativity and stuff like that, you too can make something special. And don't feel bad about dismantling and rebuilding till you make something good, alright? It never hurts to try again. Because the second time you build something, that might be the time that you've unlocked the secret to it. So don't feel afraid to do it again and again. That's the best part about this thing. You got all the time in the world. Whee! Blah. Oh. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with one last tip, one really interesting tip for you to do. And that is, find yourself a lot of pure nodes. As you can see on the bottom, it says limestone pure. And the reason for this is it actually produces 120 items per minute. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but then when you switch it off to a miner Mark II, that's going to boost it up into 240 items per minute. Now, as you can see here, I've thrown in and made the clock speed go crazy, so it's giving me 300 items per minute. But even if I didn't have that, that's still 120 items per minute, boosted it up to 240 items per minute, and it just makes it easier to work with when you have a lot of different items. Now, if you were stuck with just the standard 60, or dare I say, an impure node at the lovely amount of 15, It's still nice to have the 120 there. That's going to make it so much easier and have you able to produce so much more. Not to mention, you got to remember something, even if you found multiple locations. So take a look at this one over here. This is one line producing 120 at a pure node at a Mark 1. Let's say I had two of them, two Mark 1 miners, on two nodes at normal nodes producing 60. That's going to use twice as much power. So if I had this over here, how much power is that going to be? Well, it says 21.7, but that's because I have it overclocked to hell. So even though it says that, it's not really that. Hold on, I think this one over here, oh, this one's got 3 power shards in it too. Hold on. I am going to get rid of something. Oh, check it out. If I take a look at this one and I get rid of these lovely power shards, now you can see that's only 5 megawatts of power. Now building another one is another 5 megawatts of power. And in the early game, when 30 megawatts is the standard for a biomass burner, is somewhere around here. So 30 megawatts, that's going to take off a third of one of these biomass burners. So a third of this is going to be this lovely, just 2 of them, making the thing that could only be 1. Which would be what, 1/6? I don't know. Math is hard. And you're going to need to learn it to play this game. Ooh, that looks so cool. I just didn't realize that's on top of there. I'm getting really close to the space elevator. So that's going to be it for today. Build your small buildings, you know, check everything out. Don't go for crazy things like these challenges or mega bases right off the bat. Just have fun with the game. I mean, you guys it's your game. Just have a blast with it. Don't rush. Go slow. There's plenty of time to do all the fun stuff. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for today. I am just the severed head of dry chaos for some reason. Have a good one, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.